Get ready, Saiyan! Now you'll face my blade!
What's going on, guys? MariK here, back with another Dragon Ball Super deck profile. In an ironic twist of fate, the last tournament we played in, we decided to play with one of our favorite villains of all time, and we decided to use the leader form as well. It's everybody's favorite villain, Cell.
Unite with me and fulfill Dr. Gero's dream.
And then today, they decided to go ahead and release the updated ban list, stating that Cell's 3-drop first form is now going to be limited to 1. So they really decided to shit all over Cell for particularly no reason at all, aside from people just like to cry about it a lot, despite the fact that Cell has not done anything major in any of the bigger competitive events. But I am glad we at least got to have one last hurrah with him before we have to adjust our playstyle with him. Now, we went with the Cell Leader this time for a few different reasons, mainly because I wanted to make it a little more thematic. And at one point, I was planning to use Cell's Rebirth, and we chose not to. And I'll tell you why in a moment. I do love this leader. I like that he can, once per turn, when you put the card underneath him, you can blow up a battle card 3 or less. That's really, really nice for early on. If the opponent's battle card has barrier, obviously you're not doing anything to it, but really nice way to get around some of those early problems, especially in a deck against, like, Storm. Now, I do dislike that he draws 2 cards when he awakens instead of giving us the 2 extra energy, but it's not that big of a deal. Awakened, we have Ultimate Evil Life Form Cell, which I like this leader, once again, I will say, because he's unique. He's different than the now staple, attack leader draw card. He doesn't even have to attack to draw a card, which is nice, because you don't have to give your opponent additional card advantage by just picking at them for 1 life. You can just put a card under him for your hand and draw 2 cards. You're still only getting a +1 that way, but you can get rid of a lot of cards you don't need for a little bit of extra advantage. And then by removing 2 cards from underneath him, you can KO any battle card on the board, which is nice as well. So as with our Android 17 deck, the first card in the deck that we ran was Infernal Messenger. This is easily one of the best cards that Androids and Cell have ever received. For 1 energy, you can look at the top 10 cards of your deck and add up to 2 Android 17s, Super 17s, or Hellfighter 17s to your hand. So you're going to immediately +1, and you just, for Cell Chain, you're going to add those 17s to your hand early on so that you can prepare for any time you're going to drop that 3-drop Cell. The first Android 17 we ran is possibly one of my favorites, Dreadful Duo Android 17. He's a 3-cost 15,000 with critical, and once per turn for 1 green energy. During that turn, if an opponent's battle card with an energy cost of 3 or less was placed in the drop area by one of your skills, you can choose an Android 18 with 3 or less energy and play it. So you can play an Android 18 3-drop for 1 energy. It's not bad. It's not as good in Cell as it is in like the Android 17 leader, but still a nice little tech, especially to get out the Deadly Defender 18. Then we got another favorite of mine. It's Energy Guard Android 17. We only ran 2 of him. I didn't want a lot of 3-drops in the deck, or more than we already have, just because most of the time when you play a 3-drop, you're probably going to play Cell, whether you're going for the Cell Chain or one of the other Cell evolutions. Despite that, he is a 3-cost 15,000 blocker, and at the end of your turn, you can switch it back to active mode, so you can attack with him to KO like a smaller battle card, and then switch him back to active mode so you can have him as a blocker. We did have the free Krillin blocker in the deck, but I didn't feel like it was necessary because if we did have the Android 18 on the board, the Krillin blocker was just really extra fluff. Then we've got probably the best card to happen to Androids besides the Deadly Defender 18, and it's Limitless Energy Android 17. He's a 4-cost, 20,000 power with barrier and blocker. And when you play this card, if your leader card is green, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it. And it's nice because it doesn't have an energy restriction on what you're KOing as well. Then we've got the star of the show and the newest victim to Bandai's bullshit. It's Growing Evil Lifeform Cell.
You will be absorbed into perfection.
He's a 3-cost, 15,000 with Union Absorb. This says place one Android 17 from your hand under this card. Choose up to one cell with an energy cost of 5 or less from your deck and play it on top of this card. Shuffle your deck afterwards. So this is how you start the cell chain, and it's how you play a lot of the cards in this deck in particular. And that's why I'm so irritated and upset that they limited this card to 1 instead of limiting the 7-drop. But I'm not going to get too much into that in this deck profile. You can check out my video on the ban list updates if you really want to hear all my opinions on the cell limitation. When you place an Android 17 underneath Growing Evil Lifeform Cell, the first card that you're probably going to go to is going to be Evolving Evil Lifeform Cell.
How exhilarating!
He's a 5-cost, 20,000 with Double Strike, and when you play this card with Union, you draw one card, and you choose one of your opponent's battle cards and KO that card. And then he's got Union Absorb, where you place an Android 18 from your hand underneath him, and you choose up to one cell from your deck and place it on top of this card. So he has no restriction on what you can play from the deck as far as the cell cards go. This is how you're going to start the cell chain, but this is not the only option to run the cell chain. You can play any of the cell cards from this card. You can play most of them from the 3-drop, other than Perfect Force Cell. The first Android 18 that you're going to go to place underneath him is going to be Dreadful Duo Android 18. She's a 3-cost, 15,000 with critical, just like the Android 17. And once per turn for 1 green energy during the turn, if an opponent's battle card with an energy cost of 4 or more has been placed in the drop area by one of your skills, you choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 3 or less and KO it. So not nearly as good of an effect. If you actually had the energy and you had the chance to use it, perhaps, but you're never really going to play this card on the field. It's mainly just there for getting absorbed by Cell. If you did want to play an Android 18 to your board, though, you're going to go for Deadly Defender Android 18. We only ran 3 of her because she's not as detrimental as she would be in an actual Android build. She's a 3-cost, 20,000 with barrier, and during your opponent's turn, if your leader card is green and this card is in rest mode, your opponent's cards can't attack your leader, and this card gets minus 5,000. Power. Not as good as in the Android deck because she would get the 5,000 boosts, keeping her at 20,000, and you'd play her for 2 energy instead of 3. So, not as good here, but still a good enough card to run in the deck. Now, once Evolving Evil has absorbed an Android 18, most of the time you're probably going to go for Perfect Force Cell.
Little by little I shall reveal to you the perfect power that lies within me.
You run 3 of him. He's a 7-drop, 30,000 power with Evolve for 2 green and 4 other on top of a cell, but you're never going to use him for that because you're going to go with the Union Absorb from Evolving Evil. And he has Double Strike. When you play this card, if your leader card is an Android, your opponent must choose cards in hand until they have 3 and discard the rest of them. So that is the card that everybody complains about in the Cell deck. And that's the reason that Cell got hit. This should have been the card that got limited to 1 and not the 3-drop, but I digress. Another option you can go for during the Cell chain is Vile Replication Cell. He's a 5-cost, 20,000, so you can actually search him out with the 3-drop Cell as well. When you play this card, if your leader card is an Android, you draw 2 cards and play 2 Cell Junior tokens. The Cell Junior tokens have 10,000 power, 0 combo cost, and 5,000 combo power. So the Cell tokens, they're mainly there just for like a little bit of added combo power if you wanted to use it for offense or if you wanted to use it during your opponent's turn. But the big step is that you get a 20,000 out there and you get to draw 2 cards with it as well as getting that extra 10,000 combo power. One of my personal favorite cells to play, though, is actually Forceful Strike Cell. He's a 5-cost, 20,000 power with Double Strike and Revenge. This is actually one of the first promos that we got in the set. This came from the Tournament Pack 1 promos, way back in the days of Galactic Battle. His auto says, once per turn, when this card is in battle and the opponent combos, if it is your turn, choose the card with which it comboed with and place it in the drop area. Now, if they combo with more than one card, then you can choose which card to place in the drop area, which is really nice because you can get rid of like their super combos or anything else that's really going to hinder you being able to KO a battle card or get that double strike damage in. Then, if you needed a little bit of offensive pressure and you didn't want to give your opponent any extra card advantage, we ran 2 Infernal Villainy Cell. You can also play him off of the 3 cost as well. He's a 4 cost 20,000 power with critical, which is why he works well for being able to attack your opponent without giving them any extra cards. And when you play or combo with this card, you get to draw a card. So if you play him via Cell's ability, you can draw a card. If you combo with him, like you probably will early on during like the first 2 or 3 turns, then he's going to get you that extra combo power and get you an extra card to draw as well. I didn't really find myself playing him very much. I would combo with him if I drew him, but I think more often than not he actually got charged. So I don't know if I would continue to run him in the deck or not, but it was an option there just in case I felt like I needed it. Then for our super combo, we ran 4 defensive stance Super Saiyan Vegeta. I like this one just because the sparking ability is so much better. And the Android 16 super combo just doesn't really seem to be worth it anymore. At least not for this particular build. And Overrealm, while it is nice, that -1 discard that we would get from running Toei just isn't worth it versus being able to play our super combos whenever we wanted to versus when our opponent allowed us to get down to 4 life. Now, the reason we took out Cell's Rebirth is because I actually had a better idea in mind. Instead of playing that card early on in the game, that we would run 4 to save a hopeful future. So this is a 4-cost card that says choose up to 1 green battle card with energy cost of 5 or less in your drop area and play it. So all of your good Cell cards, excluding Perfect for Cell, are going to fit that criteria. So if you wanted to bring out Evolving Evil, you could do that and just skip the first step of bringing out the 3-drop. If you wanted to just play it to get out Vile Replication, get your draw 2 and your tokens. There's options that can be had with this card. And with Cell's ability to place cards underneath himself to KO cards and then remove 2 to KO when you're awakened, you're going to get those cards in your drop, which then sets up plays for you to save a hopeful future. It's not really the best combo in the world, but I thought it was a nice tech that really seemed to fit well with some of the other cards in the deck. It also really gave you a lot of options in case you didn't want to have to hard cast any of the Cell cards from your hand as well. Then lastly, of course, we've got our negate, 4 shocking death balls. No shock there because this is the best green negate we have. When you play this card, you negate the attack and you choose one of your opponent's battle cards. Energy costs 2 or less and KO it. And of course, it has the sparking ability that says you have 5 or more in your drop. You can play it without paying the energy cost by taking a card from your life. So it helps you self-awaken a little bit too, or just get you an extra card. Now, the side deck felt a bit crowded and felt a little green heavy, but this has honestly been one of my favorite cards since I first started playing the game. So anytime I'm playing androids or playing Cell, this has to be in the side deck. And it's 4 Chilling Terror, Android 17. One of the best promos and one of my favorites, especially early on in the game before we started getting the untap leaders. He's a 3-cost 15,000 with the permanent that says if your leader card is an android, your opponent can't draw cards when their leader awakens. They can still awaken, they just can't get that draw 2 or draw 1 if they're one of the draw 1 and untap 1 leaders. This card actually helped us out really well because some of the people do still play draw leaders. Like we played against Lord Slug, which is a draw leader. And then, of course, there's leaders like, you know, the Set 2 Trunks or Soul Striker, stuff like that that still goes around. So it's a really nice side deck option, and like I said, it's my favorite promo of all time in this game. Then for those pesky Shenron decks and those battle cards that we really just can't handle on our own terms, we ran 3 King Vegeta Surprise Attack in the side deck. So in the case that we felt like we needed it, say against Victory Strike, for example, we could hard cast the Android 18 Deadly Defender, and then as long as we had an extra energy, we could King Vegeta surprise attack and just kill that bitch. I feel like if you're running green, there's absolutely zero reason you should not have King Vegeta in the side deck if it's not already in the main deck. Another card I feel is fantastic in green, and if you have room for it, you should make room for it, is Father-Son Kamehameha. This is probably one of the best and cheapest ways to get rid of a battle card that your opponent is going to wreck your face with, just because they're probably going to find a way to cheat out the biggest card they can as early as they can. And Father-Son Kamehameha says, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost larger than or equal to their energy and KO it. So for 1 energy, you can KO their biggest battle card, and for the most part, it's going to be either going to have the same energy cost as their energy, or it's going to have an higher energy cost because they're going to do whatever they can to get that out as soon as possible with decks like Shenron, for example. Then, because Yellow has been making its way through our area, and especially will be now with the prevalence of like the Broly leader and such, so we're going to have 3 time control Cronoa, still one of the best 1-drops we have just to shut down those potential Shugesh plays. And even if they don't have Shugesh, it's still a 1-drop that gets you to draw a card. The big selling point to her is, though, that she prevents Shugesh from playing a battle card, so they can still use that super combo. They're just not going to get to play anything to disrupt the flow of the game during your turn, or even during their own turn when they attack. Then lastly, for the same reason, for the uprising of the yellow decks, and mainly because Cell's final chain does not like Cold Bloodlust, we ran 2 minus Killy zones. We might bump it up now that there are going to be a lot more Bloodlust leaders between the red Frieza leader, the yellow Broly leader, and the golden Frieza leader from set 1, and even the Galactic Emperor Frieza might make a comeback as well, just with all the new Frieza support. So I feel like this could be a 3 of, or maybe even a 4 of. The good thing about it is you only send 3 cards from your drop area to your warp. So you don't have to warp everything away so it doesn't get in the way of your sparking abilities. And not only does it stop your opponent from playing counterplay skills for the turn, but you also get to draw a card, so that's really nice as well. Overall, our matchups went pretty well. We did play against Storm during the first round, which I was not prepared for. I was actually expecting the player that I played against to be playing Shenron. So I was kind of, in the mindset of that's what I was prepared to play against. He was actually playing Hirudegarn Storm, which, another ironic twist of fate, since Storm is now going to be dead in the water as of February 1st. And because we didn't expect that, our cards that we would have ran to counter Storm, that would have been our side deck, were actually in our Zamasu deck, which we did not have on us. So we didn't have anything to really counter Storm. We did actually take game 1, though, thanks to the Forceful Strike Cell. We got his cards in his hand low enough. And then I don't know what he had in his hand, but when we went to attack with that card, even if he would have comboed it, we would have just, put it in the drop area via the ability and killed him because he was at exactly 2 life when we played that card. He did manage to get it game 2. Early on, he just drew into, like, all the Gotens, and, he swapped the Bardock out with Successor of Hope. And he just managed to wreck our face. We were completely caught off guard, and we didn't have anything to really counter it. We drew horribly, and he just drew into everything he needed. Similar thing happened game 3, although not as terribly. We were able to kind of fight back against it. We probably could have had game, but we ended up making a poor decision. Instead of choosing to try and combo out of one of his attacks, I chose to negate the attack with one of our Shocking Death Balls. Instead of comboing, we took the card from our life, and that in turn actually ended up costing me the game because I could not combo out of the final attack, whereas I would have been able to combo out of the second one. So, or the second to last one. So we did lose to Storm, but we did proceed to then play against Lord Slug in round 2, and because of the Cell Leader's ability to just KO a battle card every turn, we were able to prevent him from keeping those bond abilities active, which is easily one of the best ways to try and combat the Lord Slug deck. So we ended up 2-0ing that. Then we played against Buhan in round 3, and while it is still a terribly powerful deck, one of the best ways to get around it being Shocking Death Ball if they decide to drop the Ultimate Gohan for 2 energy, because he's still 2 energy on the board. Shocking Death Ball gets rid of it, and there are ways around Buhan as well. If they don't have Dawn of the Rampage Majin Buu to put under him to give him barrier, then Cell is just going to blow him up the next turn. So it kind of puts them on a timetable of when they can and can't try to push for game. And if they fail to do so, then you're going to blow up their trump card, and then they're just going to be left defenseless. So it was nice getting to take second place with not only with a Cell deck, but with a Cell Leader deck. And this one being as unconventional as it is. I do like some of the stuff we teched. But I'm going to try and figure out a better way to play it to now adapt to growing evil life form Cell being limited to 1. But if you guys like Cell as much as I do, or if you guys are as upset as I am about what they did to 3-drop Cell, make sure you hit that like button down below. Show some respect to our boy Cell as we, send him off to the other world to, good old... what do they call it in the anime? HFIL? Whatever the fuck that was supposed to be. Home for infinite losers. Show Cell some respect as he becomes one of those infinite losers. We appreciate the support. We appreciate all of our subscribers as well. You guys are still killing it on all of our Dragon Ball support. And I know you guys are wanting gameplay videos for all of these decks we do videos on. And we will end up getting those videos out to you guys soon. But with that, we're going to go ahead and get the frig out of here now. And we will see you guys in the next video.